Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Get going. So guys, we've got a special guest on today, Dr. David Rabin. He's a neuroscientist, board certified psychiatrist, and health tech entrepreneur. So Dr. David, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here with you.
Really excited. So how I got connected with Dr. David, and this is actually the first time that we're meeting, but I got connected with a product called Apollo Neuro. And this was a while ago. And Dr. David, I got to be honest, like the first thing out of my mind was like, oh my God, another wearable. Here we go. Right. It's just like, oh my, everyone's wearing, Auras and Apple Watches, and it just becomes addicting. But yes, but I think where this became a bit different for me was it's finally a wearable that's applying some type of a solution, right? Where Aura, we still have to take the data and utilize the data and establish that behavioral change. Heart rate monitors, we've been wearing these forever. I would go as far to say that 90+% people who are wearing heart rate monitors don't know how to utilize the data or what they're actually using it for. They're going into group training classes and they're like, my heart rate's here. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, so Apollo Neuro for me became a bit different because here is, it's pretty much looks like a watch. It almost looks like a Whoop in a way if you look at it from a distance. And but it vibrates. We're getting into vibration therapy, and this why we wanted to bring you on is this is really less of like a sales. This isn't an ad here. This is about something I've been using now for 6 straight weeks, and I'm shocked. Like I didn't expect my REM sleep is ironically improved. My HRV is at least, I'll call it 10 points up. I mean, at least 10 points up regularly. Yep. I'm falling asleep with this thing on. Like every night I'm like passing out, and then like normally I typically use the bathroom once, and then I'm waking up, it's off. I take it off, but I'm really fascinated about this. So can we just start with like the bare bones elementary school Cliff Notes version of what this thing is for our viewership?
Yeah, absolutely. So Apollo is a new kind of technology that we discovered in my research at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center and the University of Pittsburgh Department of Psychiatry, where we were effectively trying to develop technology that could what we call non-invasively, like without actually going into the body, like being on the surface of the body, could help us naturally feel calm and restored in a way that's similar to what you get, the effect you get from doing a nice meditation or yoga session or deep breathing session. And so, or a great workout, right? And like, there's this feeling that we all know about that we all talk about that has a lot of positive neurotransmitters and such involved in it that we can access naturally that feels good and recovers and restores the body. And so my work in the department, I was working with a lot of veterans and a lot of folks who were struggling with severe PTSD and traumatic brain injury, who were just having a real hard time recovering. Like over 70% of them were still sick with all the best treatments that we had by the book. And so that kind of led me to explore other solutions that people were using to help. And those were the deep breathing, the meditation, the yoga, mindfulness practices, soothing touch, service animals, soothing music, and then things like psychedelic assisted therapy with MDMA. And MDMA assisted therapy is now one of the leading treatments for PTSD that has ever been discovered. It's about to receive FDA clearance probably this year. Wow. And it works. And so I've been studying this. I was trained in it in 2016 by MAPS. And the way we think MDMA is working is that molecularly it's amplifying the safety neural pathways in our brains that help us which amplifies the safety of the therapeutic experience with the two therapists that are holding space for you and giving you that treatment, and then helps you feel safe enough to remake meaning around old trauma, right? Like think about how powerful it is. In just 3 sessions with 42 hours of psychotherapy, we're seeing more people enter remission than stays stable, right? Like it's incredible. I've never seen anything like it in the history of psychiatry. And so as I was getting trained in this and studying these alternative techniques, I saw this theme of safety, emotional, mental, physical safety, and what safety represents in the body, in our bodies, which is improved vagal tone, improved parasympathetic autonomic balance, right? That's how it's recognized in the body as a signal, and what it does to us. And that results in reduced heart rate and reduced blood pressure and reduced breathing rate and more feelings of calm and presence and peacefulness and more resources going to the reproductive system and the immune system and the digestive system and creativity, empathy, etc. Right? All these parts that we want to be functioning all the time. And so we figured out that the fastest way into that pathway is naturally is soothing touch. And no one has developed a technology that has ever leveraged or the science of touch to change the way we feel and to change the way our autonomic nervous system is functioning. And so we took this on as the task, albeit an ambitious task at the University of Pittsburgh. And then we discovered, in fact, that there were very specific patterns of vibration that could be delivered to the body as low frequency sound waves, basically like wearable bass, that at specific rhythms of this bass that are changing at a specific rate over time, you can reliably nudge the body back into a 5 to 7 breaths per minute breathing pattern, which is what is cardiorespiratory coherence, which is what is achieved when you enter a biofeedback or a meditative state at first, as your first place you go. And that's when your heart rate starts to drop and your HRV starts to go up and your vagal tone starts to go up and your heart and lungs are functioning at optimum efficiency. And we found that you can do that for the first time just at sending these specific soothing touch sound waves to the body, and the body likes it. And then it trains the body to access those states more over time.
Wow. D?
Yeah, I was talking to Dave. I was talking to Don about just I have background in electrical stimulation, so I'm sort of, in that zone of like figuring out what are optimal frequencies for different applications. How did you guys come up? Was it as trial and error? And I know that I've been around vibrational plates and for recovery and stuff like that. How did you come up with that frequency and the load or whatever, volume of work that it is needed to elicit this response?
That's a great question. And we actually started with electricity because we know more about electricity and how electrical frequencies affect the body than any other stimulation because we've been doing it since like Faraday, right? Like back in the 1880s or whatever. It's been going on for a while. So we now we know so much about how those frequencies change the body. And so we started there. And that's actually what we were going to do with the product when we started to get good results. But thanks to my wife, Catherine, she came in, she was the business brains and financial brains of who was just giving us free advice at the time. And she came into the lab and we told her what we were going to do and that we wanted to sell a consumer product that stimulated people electrically to make them feel good. And she's like, I don't think people are going to buy that as a consumer product if they're being shocked. I don't think you're going to be able to get massive
Shock therapy. Yeah.
yeah, and we didn't believe her, and she had us do like a 400-person market research survey, and she was in fact completely right. And so it forced us to explore other modalities. And as we started to look into vibration and more like tactile experiences, we found a lot of research that had already been done on the effects of vibration on the body and basically showing that specific kinds of vibration increase sympathetic tone reliably and other kinds of vibration increase parasympathetic vagal tone reliably. And so that was basically our framework. And we started there, and then we ran 2 double-blind randomized placebo-controlled crossover studies in the university lab. And then that showed us, when people had no idea what vibrations they were getting and no idea what they were supposed to do, and they were forced to do all these different tasks, all wired up with EEG and EKG and respiratory monitors and pupil monitors and all of the things, right, in tandem, time synced, we could see exactly what the vibrations were doing to the body, how they were impacting cognitive and physical performance and recovery, and what vibrations were pleasing to people, importantly, and which ones weren't, right? Because when we saw there was a spectrum, there were certain ones that were effective for energy, but they didn't feel pleasing, in general, as they were subjectively reported. So we eliminate all of that stuff and focus on the stuff that's energizing but feels good, right? And so and then that kind of led into figuring out exactly how to compose the rhythms, and then they iterate all the time.
I have a quick question. If Don, if you can find the frequency and the rhythms that relax people, is there a product that could increase sympathetic tone and get people ready for like performance?
But this
And
does, doesn't it? That
This
was
does
my question.
both.
oh, it
Yes.
does. Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
if I'm warming up for a sporting event, I could use the same thing.
you
Yeah.
just
We
stole
have
my thunder there. I mean, basically, what I wanted to ask is, I'm using
Sorry.
this right now. No. But this is fantastic. I mean, so typically, I think you have about 7 different functions, right? Social, calm, energy, sleep, recovery. You have these different functions you could choose, and yeah, I mean, I'm mainly right now. I'll be honest, like 100% of the time, I'm using this to like unwind, recover, sleep. Like I'm using those functions. Now I'm really intrigued because I can't tell you how many products I get thrown on my desk like a week. Like it's crazy. It's half the time you want to put you want to look into it, and then you roll your eyes like this is I just don't have patience for it. And then you end up getting to it months later on, but it's becoming addicting. Like it's down to a system with me now. Like I wear an Apple Watch. I'll be honest with you. I use like I check the high tide for my boat. I adjust music. Texts come in. I have my phone up at my desk. I look at it. I'm using it when I play hockey. I like it because it's measuring, I think, a pretty accurate, slower, steady state or moderate intensity. Obviously, I won't use this for high intensity intervals, but when this comes off at about 6 o'clock and I'm getting in the shower, this comes off, I shower, and my Apollo goes on. And lately, I'm feeling like, and I never like to say more is better, but the more I'm wearing it, the better my aura and the better I am feeling the next day. So now I'm starting to say to myself, like, holy shit, like it recommends you to wear it, what, 3 hours? I might be getting this wrong. I apologize. 3 hours
At
and
least
15 a day or
Yeah,
3:45.
yeah, at least 3 hours a day, at least 5 days a week. That's when we see people getting the best results. But it seems like those continue to improve up to like 6, 7, 8 hours a day. You continue to get added benefit for every hour, every minute of use gives you a small amount of more deep, more REM
Why
sleep.
not wear this an hour before training? Why not? Like, is
Yeah.
this suddenly like improve my alertness or my brain function or my mental capacity or my
Yeah.
reaction time? Like, is this going to do that? Now you're getting into like I look at it from a consumer standpoint. You have all these great options, and you're like, where do I start? Like, how do you recommend someone to start breaking into this? And what do you like? You just recommended 3 hours and 15 minutes, 5 days a week. Can you break down some basic recommendations and what someone should be noticing?
Yeah, and I think we've made it really easy to do now. So if you go into the schedule of your app, you can literally just click your daily vibes and answer like 6 or 7 questions. We'll figure out what your chronotype is, which is what your ideal sleep and wake and energy rhythms are, which is an evidence-based way to understand when you are most able to focus and perform at a high level. And based on your chronotype, based on when your sleep and wake cycles naturally align, and when you are tend to be getting the best deep sleep. And then based on when you absolutely need to be out of bed and when you want to be in bed asleep every night or most nights, we provide a customized schedule to you. And then that schedule basically runs throughout the whole day, and night. And so you don't have to do anything. And we have a lot of professional athletes that use it this way because they have very strict routines around, we know we're going to work out at this time every day, and we know we're going to need to recover at this time every day. And so they'll have these very specific workout routines. Well, they'll wake up with their Apollo. They'll have it turned on, like you said, for half an hour to an hour to get them into flow before they work out or perform or train or have to go and do an event. And then they'll have it turn on recovery afterwards. And then that, restores them and helps them wind down faster so that they can actually get the rest they need so they can do it again on repeat the next day.
Right. And what about from a battery life standpoint? I mean, it's something that you got to pretty much stay on, though, I've noticed, right?
I think, in general, if you use the assigned scheduling features that give you the customized schedule, or you have Smart Vibes, which is the AI subscription we released, where it adapts in real time to you based on your aura data and your sleep data, and turns on to keep you asleep at night, which is really a cool feature. Um, the battery life will last, 1 to 3 days, depending on your intensity that you're using it at. I think one of the biggest mistakes about Apollo is that people think that more is more and you want to jack it up all the way. And we see people actually getting better effects at lower intensities where they just barely notice it. It's noticeable, but it's not distracting in any way. It's not supposed to be the focus of your attention. It's supposed to help us be more present with whatever it is we're doing. So that also conserves battery life a lot. So yeah, I mean, you charge every 1 to 3 days depending on how much you use it. But if you just plug it in when you're showering, like like we do, and or when you're doing your nighttime routine, you just plug it in, give it like 15, 30 minutes, it charges up pretty quick.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I think that's probably my mistake was in the beginning. I was starting at a lower percentage, and in time I felt like I was adapting to it more, so I started cranking it up. And then I'll just put it on and I'll run it. Like I'll just go and find a function and I'll hit that function, whatever it is. Like I wore it on the plane the other day, and
Oh,
that was
plane's the
the first time
best.
I thought it was phenomenal. Like I felt like my sleep that night was better. I almost felt like I was calmer on the plane through turbulence. I just felt
Yeah.
for some reason a little bit more at ease. And so that's interesting. So what would you, from a percentage standpoint, you would just recommend someone to turn it up to the point where they're just noticing, but it's not over, taking over all their focus?
Yeah, think about it like music, right? Like if you were to have an ambient soundtrack playing around you everywhere you went in your life, how loud would you want that to be?
Yeah.
Right? You wouldn't want it to be so loud that it starts to interfere with your ability to think or, have conversations, right? Or anything like that. You wouldn't want it to be so loud that it causes restlessness or discomfort in your body. You'd want it to be kind of like gentle and low and in the background. What we call in music is accompaniment, right? So it's kind of there. It's there when you pay attention to it. You know it's there, but it's not distracting your attention. The real benefit of the intensity is for times the intensity control on the device and doing it with the buttons is that you can use it in on a plane and turn it way up because the plane has so much ambient vibration that you won't even feel it at the normal intensities you're using it at home. So when we have elite military folks using this who are in like helicopters and planes and tanks and things like that all the time and doing crazy stuff, and elite athletes who are in like really noisy environments and giant crowded stadiums, right? And they need to turn it up in those settings because there's a lot more stimulation going on. And just like when you're listening to music, you have to turn the volume up when you're in a loud place to hear it, right? And so it's no different with touch. It's just music composed for your body. And the benefits are similar to music. Like if you look at, there hasn't been that many studies of music and the therapeutic effects, unfortunately. But if you look at the way that music, changes heart rate and heart rhythm by increasing or changing the tone and the frequency and all that, it's very similar. And what we're seeing with Apollo is you can wear it continuously across time, and there's cumulative benefits. So we did a sleep study, one of the world's largest sleep studies that actually came out of COVID, where we, surveyed Aura users and just collected their data, and they volunteered to share with us for 3 years, over 1,300 people. And we've seen that using there's a near linear relationship between how many minutes you use Apollo at night more than during the day, but the day is still important because helping regulate our stress during the day will help us sleep better at night and regulating our energy, especially if it results in taking in less substances that could mess up our sleep. And so we're seeing people, over the course of 3 months of using this, the way we're talking about, have like 4% decrease in resting heart rate, 11% cumulative increases in HRV, and 19% increases in deep sleep, 14% increases in REM, and 30 minutes more sleep a night just by using it on this consistent schedule.
I've never been able to get, according to Aura, my REM is always the one area that's just below. I like to say it's never in the blue. It's always kind of like like in the red, but right, like just below the average. And I want to say since I've been wearing the Apollo, I want to say 90% of the time I'm probably above it now, which I think is just fascinating.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that's what we see in most of the people who use it for sleep is because they're, if you're calm enough, safe enough, and soothed enough to allow ourselves to go to bed and get that deep restorative, sleep, um, then we're gonna get more of it when we're safer because our body's allowing the natural process of sleep to take effect. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in working with patients with insomnia is that there's something that they've learned that is a cognition or a misunderstanding that there's something wrong with them that they can't sleep, right? And all of us, I don't know a single human being who hasn't had that thought sometimes in their lives, right? I have certainly had that thought, but we all evolved to sleep. We all evolved to spend, if you look evolutionarily at all animals, like we evolved to sleep and we evolved to spend like a third of our lives in sleep, which is our most restorative place, right? That's a lot of time. And nothing is more therapeutic and healing for us than sleep. So if we are not getting that or able to get that because we have a thought in our minds like maybe there's something wrong with me that I can't sleep, then that's inducing a fear response in the body that gets misinterpreted like a survival threat because our bodies don't know the difference. Like threat is threat to the body, to the reptilian brain. It's our higher order brain that has to remind ourselves, hey, actually, I get that thought, but if I actually look at the research, 99.99% of people don't have an issue genetically with their sleep. There's only like one family in the world that I've seen evidence of that's a real thing called fatal familial insomnia, where these people have a genetic prion disease that kicks off at like somewhere between 45 and 55, and they just lose the ability to sleep. Everyone else has retained the ability to sleep. We just think we can't. And thinking we can't means there must be something wrong with me that I can't sleep. That's the assumption that we make when we have that thought, even if we don't acknowledge it. And when we start to have those thoughts, it engenders a state of fear in the body because there's something wrong with me because I can't sleep and everybody else can. Well, it turns out we all have these thoughts and nobody can sleep, so nobody's alone. And that restoring that safety thinking in the body, just grounding us in our bodies with something simple like Apollo, is why these techniques are so effective, why somatic techniques, breathing techniques, CBT, they're all part of the same formula.
The question I have, and this all sounds really positive, what are the downsides? What if I overuse it? What if I feel like I can't live without it? What do you say to those people? Because there's going to be people coming out saying like, wait, we're relying on this when we should be able to regulate these things ourselves. Do you get those kind of questions?
Yeah, all the time. I'm an addiction psychiatrist, so this is my bread and butter. But I think, it's important to consider that number one, I think the first thing talking about is we've done this research because we've tracked people across time. We've tracked people across years of using this since we launched and thousands of people. And we see all of their usage patterns. And people don't become tolerant to it like they would an artificial drug or something you're taking from the outside. They become sensitive to it over time, which is really interesting. So that's similar to the effect that happens with deep breathing or with cognitive behavioral therapy with exposure training, where you expose somebody to something that's threatening them, or like the idea of a spider if they have like arachnophobia, right? You can put a picture of a spider up, their heart rate goes up, and then the therapist is there to remind them that they're safe enough to be able to be in the presence of the picture of the spider, right? And then it reconditions their nervous system by reminding it that it can be safe in a situation that used to be threatening. And then those safety states become easier to access in other situations that trigger that same response because they're training it over time through practice. And that's an CBT exposure is like one of the leading treatments for PTSD, but it's an incredible amount of work and requires therapists to be with you all the time. And that's not accessible to most people and doesn't work for most people because it's an incredible amount of work. So we were thinking about ways to tap into the same learning pathway that trains the body to feel safe in situations that were previously interpreted as stressful or threatening, and to condition the body to be able to access those states on its own. That's how deep breathing has its effect in meditation. After you're done with it, there's a feel good phase afterwards, right? That feel good phase, our body learning to carry on the feel good feelings of that experience, right? And that's trainable. And that's what Eric Kandel won the Nobel Prize for in 2000, was discovering how our memory works, how we can train it in different ways by safety and fear conditioning. So ultimately, if you tap into that, you turn what happens with drugs, many drugs that are sedative and hypnotic and have other issues that are addictive. You take that addictive effect with a drug, and then you translate that through memory neuroscience into a learning tool that conditions sensitization and self-awareness training. So people actually get more better over time, whether they're wearing the device or not. If they wear the device, they feel oftentimes better if they haven't started to master the self-awareness skills that the device, that the wearable is actually subtly teaching them their bodies, right? But over time, people actually use the device less. They still use it, and they use it very intentionally for specific things like the pregame and the recovery afterwards and the sleep, but they're not using it like 6, 8 hours a day. They're using it like very intentionally, like 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours a day. In the 6 months, 12-month, year groups. But sometimes when people start using it, especially if you have an illness that it's really helping with, I had a woman who wrote me the other day that says she uses it for like 6 to 8 hours a day because it treats her chronic pain and so she can sleep. And she hasn't had anything that's helped her. It's the only thing that's helped her. And so people like that use it all day, every day. And, you know, is there anything wrong with it? Doesn't really have side effects. So what are the alternatives that it is replacing for that person? It's replacing opioid painkillers. It's replacing steroid injections. It's replacing surgical procedures. It's replacing all the things that person would have to take that are actually really harmful that a lot of my patients were taking. This is replacing a lot of those things for people. And so people are actually using less drugs because they're using more Apollo. And for us, especially in the addiction world, nothing could be more promising than that.
So it's like a neuroplasticity training device, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Interesting.
neuroplasticity is learning, and learning requires safety. If you're in a fear state, everything condenses, right? You go into tunnel vision mode, all of the resources to your learning is not involving survival shut down, right? So to your point, yeah, you summed it up. It accelerates learning by reminding our bodies how to be safe enough to learn and be in that neuroplastic learning state.
I never thought of it that way. So in a way, this is kind of rewiring, or this can rewire your brain. Or I even think about injury, like when we had clients come in and they're going through physical therapy, and then at a certain point, it's like, all right, you know what? We've exhausted everything. It's time for surgery, and they're always feeling pain, and they've been feeling that pain for years. After the surgery, we've seen that, sometimes the pain's still there for a while because those triggers are, it's still there. They're almost expecting it. They're trained to feel that pain. So those signals are never turning off. And I find that's very difficult, right? Because most people aren't going to know what we know. And they're not going to say, like, no, we have to start rewiring our thinking a bit. This is almost a tool to start rewiring the way that you've been trained to think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does so in a really simple way, which is really important because, you know, we often overcomplicate this, but like the more you do anything, the better you get at it, right? So if you're this is what this is like the one-liner of Eric Kandel's Nobel Prize winning work, right? From 2000. The more you do anything, the better we get at it. Practice makes mastery, right? That could be doing something that doesn't help us, it doesn't serve us, like thinking about what a useless piece of shit person we are, or it could be uh, something like practicing being grateful, or practicing lifting weights at the gym, right? Like anything that we do, anything gets wired. So when we are experiencing pain in association with different experiences in our lives over an extended period of time, and there's a part of us that thinks, hey, what if this pain never goes away? Right? Now you and then right and then you don't instead of sliding that, gently sliding that, acknowledging that thought and sliding it aside, right? And moving on to the next thing, you decide to focus on that thought, right? Now you're entraining your
I actually
brain.
experienced that. Sorry to interrupt, but I
Yeah.
experienced it last year. I had, I'm very open about it. I had my first anxiety attack due to a medication that I got on. I had a bad reaction to it. So I had it one night. I had it another night, and then I put two and two together on the medication. Then I got off of it. And that following night, I had a fear going to bed. I was actually like, holy shit, am I gonna go through this again? And then I developed a new respect, like, because unless you go through it, you never really understand what it's like and how scary it is. And you're like, oh my God, like the ability to not be able to sleep and sitting up all night, like for me, it's frightening. Like when you know you
It's
have work the
terrible.
next day and you have to function, it is horrible.
It's
Yeah, like
really, it's really unpleasant.
I mean, who was I was reading some stuff by, is it Norman Doidge, and he was talking about neuroplasticity gone wrong, and how chronic pain is essentially that. It's you can create positive neuroplasticity and negative. Um, and then even the stuff with the opiates where people are creating new pathways to, still feel pain, and so they have to take more opiates and more and more. And so this is kind of the opposite, it sounds like. And it's not a medical device as it is now, right?
It's a consumer wearable because we wanted
Okay.
to make it accessible to everyone, but because our clinical trials that we've had so much incredible promising results from our clinical trials. We've had 7 trials completed to date, 6 of which will be published this year. We are taking it through the FDA pathway so that
Nice.
eventually it can get reimbursement and be more accessible to people.
Nice.
So, but this is not like any type of vibration therapy here, right? Like there's science behind the I mean, what would you call them? Smart waves? Like there's different smart waves that you would choose. Are you, what do you
Yeah,
have? 7 options? Is
yeah,
there
they're vibes. They're
five?
vibes, right? It's
Five.
like because a vibe is like an experience. It's a tone of how you're feeling in a setting, right? It's a whole thing. And so that vibe starts with us. And so when we walk into a experience, like we bring in whatever baggage we're carrying. And so it affects the tone of the experience. So effectively, you know, I'll speak for myself, but I know most of my friends would feel the same way. We never learned, especially as young men, like nobody ever told us to prioritize learning emotion control, right? Or emotional awareness or emotional regulation, right? That was like never a thing that was really like taught. Like I knew there were certain ways you're supposed to act and certain ways you're not supposed to act, but like in general, prioritizing like paying attention and training emotional intelligence and emotional awareness was not even a thing that I knew about. It wasn't a field that I knew existed, and so Apollo is really a way to, now that neuroscience has shown this stuff does exist and it's actually really important that we should all be learning EQ and emotional training techniques and attention and mindfulness techniques, and we should be learning it as soon as possible for our own mental health and well-being, like as soon as possible, because the sooner you learn them, the sooner you can just do it all the time, like passively, wherever you're going, you can be meditating or being mindful, and that can improve your body's health and recovery on the go. It just requires practice. And so from studying like Eastern monks and meditators and their techniques, and then all the way through what we do with Western science, that contributed so much to the way we wanted to create Apollo to help people like basically nudge us back into the desirable state physiologically in our bodies, which then helps our mind center in that desirable physiological state. And then you have a target for what that state people are telling you you're supposed to get to feels like, right? So it's like, I think a lot of people are like, how am I supposed to know how to meditate if I don't even know what I'm supposed to feel like when I meditate? Right? How am I supposed to know what I'm aiming for with these different breathing practices? Like, where is the target? It's like shooting in the dark. And so, what we're trying to do with Apollo was target the body first, right? Not the brain first. Hit the body first. Give the body the feeling. People can tap into that feeling and be present with it, and then they can understand what they're aiming for when they're trying to get there on their own. And that kind of reinforces that positive training. So it's like you're just continuing on with that when it's not on.
So you're kind of going through the peripheral nervous system to train the central nervous system. Interesting.
Exactly.
And now I know Don is probably thinking this too, is this is obviously proprietary and patented. Have you looked at licensing it to Apple so that they can throw it into their watch and
We are like here. It's crazy.
right?
Feel my
Like
thunder right now. I love you.
So we are talking to Apple. Our CTO is former Apple and helped build some of the core iOS operating system and the App Store. And so he has, we've been in touch with Apple, and we just released a new, very, very special preview for your iPhone So if you have an iPhone, you can download the Apollo app and you can open it, and your iPhone will be upgraded for free to, when you hit Feel Apollo, to deliver Apollo's patented vibes to you through your phone. And they
Really?
can, yeah, and they can
Wow.
induce like a 20 minute, the feeling of being in like a 20-minute meditation with, if you hold it to your chest, within just 2 minutes. And it continues afterwards. And you can, it's just a demo, right? It's just a way for people to understand that you can get this experience out of your phone, and it's really, really different than any other vibration you've ever felt come out of this box, right? Like this is a different kind of experience, and it can fairly rapidly calm you down, and also, do other things, but you need the wearable for that.
So meditate, I find meditation is very difficult, right? Like I've been doing it for years.
So hard.
There are some people that I think their schedule and their just their overall mindset, maybe it plays a little bit stronger to them. Like my day is, I'm a New Yorker, man. Like I am, I sleep hard, I work hard. The second I'm up, there's not a period of time where I'm able to like walk outside barefooted and like collect the earth's energy and the rays. And like there's just, it's just the way that I live. And I find sometimes, because my day is bang, 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 that even laying on the floor for 15, 20 minutes and trying to focus when life is happening, work is happening, is it's very difficult. I think what I'm really enjoying about this is it's almost like almost multitasking in a way. I'm not telling you that I'm putting on getting ready for sleep and going for a run. Like I'm not doing that, but like I might be sitting down watching TV with my kids, and I'll just feel these like this like light vibration on my wrist. And for some reason, it brings me to this point where I'm like, relax, like let it go. Like it's kind of like this trigger. That's how simple it is. So in a way, what I love about it is it's not taking away any additional time from my day. It's just adding value. And it's not something that I have to put on where now I'm like, well, I have to use, like, I love Aura. Like I utilize the data. I've been working with them for probably 5, 6 years already. And over time, you learn about it. But I also put Aura on a friend of mine who slept perfectly. And I'm like, how'd you sleep? And he's like, terrible. He's like, because he was like, I'm like, how do you sleep? He's like, perfect. But I want to try Aura. I'm like, what do you mean perfect? He goes, Don, my head hits the pillow at 8 o'clock, and I'm literally waking up at like 5:30 in the morning on my own. I feel rested. I feel energetic. You don't wake up to use the bathroom. He's like, no. I'm like jealous. I'm like, this is amazing. And then we put it on him, and I love Aura, but he's like, no. Mentally, it put me into a different state where now I'm worried about the data, and now I'm starting like subconsciously I'm thinking about it. I gave it a few days. It's not for me. That's the only case that I've ever heard. But I also have people who buy it and they're like, well, now what do I do? This, you just put it on and it kind of does. Whether you're measuring the data or not, it is putting you into a better place to be able to do what I think is one of the most important things, and that's recover, rest,
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad to hear that you've had such a good experience with it. It just
Incredible. An
that's what
incredible
we live for.
it's not a good incredible, and I've been around product for 25 years, and I got to be honest, most of the time I'm taking something and I'm using it, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, but it doesn't become habit. For
Right.
something to become habit in my life that becomes routine, it's got to, one, work. Like I want it to be not like, oh, this kind of works, like I need to see a significant difference, but two,
Right.
it's got to be, easy. Like I don't want to be sitting there strapping myself up to 15 sensors and laying in the dark. And then suddenly it's like, oh, we got a false reading. Let's do it again. Like I've done things like that with products that are fantastic, but I'm like, wow, this is not going to be user friendly to the general public.
Yeah.
This is, you put on a watch, you put your setting on, or you have your smart vibe settings and let it do its work.
Yeah.
And then it's in the pudding.
And I think to your point, like you made a really important point, which is that a lot of products are designed without taking into consideration style, our individual style, and our time, right? And I think that was something, because we are personally so busy and we use Apollo a lot to help us with productivity, that we were like, we need to be a product that's compassionate and understanding of these challenges that our customers will have, that we also have, because we're all human first, right? And a lot of us share these similar challenges. So that was a big part of motivating why we made Apollo #1 able to be worn anywhere on your body, anywhere on your person. Apollo works because it works through your sense of touch. It works better on places that have dense bone, like your arm or your wrist or your ankle. Ankle's probably the all-time favorite spot, but chest is catching up real quick. A lot of women are wearing it on their bras or on a bra strap on the collarbone. You can belt clip it. You can anywhere you can attach it and feel the vibrations, you can wear it. And it doesn't need to be on your skin. It can be over clothing. So all of these, make it easy for people to wear it versatilely. And then secondly, we made it not require really any effort after you set it up. Like if you wanted to get Apollo going for you from setup to actually having it run, you don't even need to check it every day. All you need to do is set it up in 5 minutes, and then you set up you do this chronotype survey schedule. We assign you a custom schedule for your day. That schedule gets saved to your wearable, and then your wearable turns on automatically throughout the day and night for you without any communication required with your phone. And you can use the buttons to control it and turn it back on or off or up or down or whatever you want. And it could be separated from your phone as often as you want. As long as you keep it charged, that schedule will run for your whole week. So we really wanted to make it just passive, right? If you have to take time out every time you want to use this thing, then it's kind of defeating the purpose, because we're trying to give you more time back, right? That's the best commodity, most important commodity we have as humans.
That's the toughest thing with a lot of these wearables, Derek, is I think they become a bit stressful. They start overtaking people's minds or their lives, and people start,
The fitness tracking wearables you're talking about.
the fitness tracking wearables, and they're like, there's certain basics that we have to always pay attention to, right? Like Apollo's great, but like you still got to focus on getting to sleep. You still got to focus on good nutrition. You still need to focus on movement, right? However you want to package that. Dr. David, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This was incredible. Maybe we have you on another day, David, to discuss some of the other topics that you were bringing up. I know you're just a ball of knowledge here, but can you let everyone know if they're interested in learning more about you, learning more about Apollo? Where can they go to find it? I know, obviously, guys, you can go to donsaladino.com. I'm a big I am now a big advocate of of Apollo, and anyone who has questions, feel free to DM me. But Dr. David, can you give me some info on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, thank you so much for having me. This has been a really fun conversation, and I'm so glad that you're having such a great experience using the product. And I've been having the same one. It's definitely helped my life quite a bit, being a physician and stressful startup life co-founder. And if anybody wants to find me, I always love to hear from people. You can find me at drdave.io, which is my clinic website, my personal website. And you can also find me at or find the product at apolloneuro.com. It's APOLLONEURO.com. Or you can go to wearablehugs.com, which is what the kids call it. And I'm on socials. I'd love to hear from you at Dr. David Rabin on Instagram and Twitter. And I have 2 new shows on Spotify and Apple that I think all of your audience would probably be kind of into, which is about the science of consciousness and psychedelics. One of them is called Your Brain Explained, which is the general consciousness show about how the brain works, and that's quarterly show. And then the other one is called The Psychedelic Report, which is your bi-weekly psychedelic news featuring experts in the field and talking about the latest research that's going on.
Well, you just got a new follower out of me, so I'm on.
Yeah,
IG.
I tried the app just while we were talking. Very cool. Very cool introduction, honestly.
Oh, thank you.
Did Kate get you an Apollo yet, Derek?
No. If I get one, I'm gonna stick it all over
listen,
my body.
No, this is incredible. I'm going to message Kate now. Dr. Dave, thanks again. If there's anything you need out of us, let us know. But I know our community is going to absolutely love this. My Challenger community is going to love it. I'm slowly breaking them into it now. I've got a good community of thousands. And maybe at some point we could bring someone on to kind of answer questions or just kind of, I never like to push things
Happy
on.
to.
Yeah, it'd be awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
thank you.
publish it early next week, and we'll send you the links.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Dr. Dave. Take care.
You
Thank you
too.
very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.